If anybody has trouble hearing me for any reason, let me know. There are no slides to download, unfortunately, but this is going to be recorded, so I'm going to wait for the recording to get started. Okay, and so we're being recorded. I've got the indicator there. So there's no slides because I'm going to give you a demo. And so by now you should be able to see my screen. You should be able to see the Sprout Social application. And I figure it's a lot more beneficial for you to actually see it in action rather than just give you slides to look at. And if you know anything about me, you know that I'm a big fan of video. So I'd much rather have you watching a video replay of this instead of looking at a bunch of slides with screenshots of what you're going to see right here in video format. I do have the question queue up on my other monitor, so feel free to ask away, and I will try and remember as much as possible, as often as possible, to glance at that and answer your questions. So we're talking about using Sprout Social to maximize your online engagement. And there's lots of applications out there that people use to access their social networks on the web. Hootsuite is a very popular one. Buffer app is one that's very popular also. Of course, there's TweetDeck. There's a bunch of them out there, and I've played with probably all of them. And about a year or so ago, some of you may know that I'm a big fan of the show Shark Tank. And so I started following all the sharks on Twitter. Obviously, there are people who, you know, I feel I can learn a lot from about a brand. I mean, Shark Tank itself has become a very well-recognized brand. And, of course, the individuals themselves, being so successful as entrepreneurs, are definitely people I want to be able to learn from. So these are people I definitely want to be following in social media. And Twitter happens to be one of my favorite places to follow people like this. There's a number of reasons why I like Twitter. A lot of it is because it's just good, fast information. Things are constantly out there, and you know, conversations are really going on in real time all the time, 24/7 on Twitter. So for that reason, it's one of my favorite social networks. But as I was following the sharks on Twitter, I noticed that one of them was using Sprout Social. When you look on Twitter, if you look very closely at a tweet, you will see, well, here's me tweeting about this webinar. But if you look closely and if you click right on the tweet, it will often show a little kind of stamp. Like if I go to embed this tweet, for example, it usually will say somewhere like via Sprout Social. So this was via at YouTube, right? So you'll see this little via mark that lets you know what the source is of the tweet. So I noticed that one of them had, I think it was Lori Greiner actually, next to that via link it said Sprout Social. So I said, oh, that's interesting. And if that's what these moguls are using for social media, it's certainly probably worth checking out to me. And that got me here. That's how I discovered Sprout Social. And, you know, just going on that premise that these are people who are obviously very successful. They have tremendous followings on social media, lots and lots of people. So, you know, clearly somebody in her PR team, I'm assuming, decided that this was the right tool to use to manage her social media, because I'm sure she doesn't do it all herself. I'm sure none of them do. They probably have PR teams. Hopefully they are actually themselves engaging to some extent, hopefully to a large extent, but I'm sure they also have other people, you know, helping manage their Twitter account. So Sprout Social, it turns out, probably confirmed that abundantly, actually, because what I learned as I started digging into this product was that you can actually work in teams on a social account. So notice up at the top right here, I'm in my Nerd Enterprises channel, but I've also got other channels that I manage. I help BillQuick, the company some of you may know, BQE Software, with their social media. Here, of course, is my own Nerd Enterprises. Here's schoolofbookkeeping.com. So I can create these groups, and based on those groups, I can add teams to them. So I can say, hey, you know what, I'm going to be out tomorrow with clients all day, and I can say to Jeff, who's my bookkeeping manager, if I wanted to, hey, can you come in here and just manage my Sprout Social account? In fact, notice here I've got a tasks option. So I can take, let's say that somebody tweets something to me, and a lot of people are using Twitter more and more for customer service purposes, because a lot of people are going out on Twitter and complaining about brands So that you can look at that two ways. You can say, oh, that's terrible, I shouldn't have a Twitter account, which really is another way of saying I'm going to ignore that. Or I can say, hey, you know what, this is an opportunity. If somebody mentions my brand on Twitter and they're mentioning it by way of complaining because they're unhappy about something, then this is a perfect opportunity for me to watch that. And Sprout Social is a listening tool on social media for one thing for sure, such that I can watch that and I can say, hey, I can actually find a tweet and I can add it as a task and I can assign it to Jeff, let's say, and say, hey, Jeff, do me a favor, follow up with this person. Let's make arrangements to get in touch with them directly so we can provide them with the help that they need. And I've been on the receiving end of that kind of experience many times because I've gone out onto Twitter and I've said, hey, I'm having a problem with such and such. And, if the brands are smart, frankly, and they're listening, they get back to you. It's happened with Microsoft. It's happened with Intuit, right, where I've gone out and said, hey, is QuickBooks Online down? And they're usually very good about getting back and saying, either yes, we're working on it, or no, we're not aware of any issues. And, so those kinds of things are where social media comes in very handy, especially if you're trying to grow a business and build a brand online. And frankly, like it or not, I think that, that you kind of have to think in terms of the way things are going, the way business is going in the future. If you haven't already gotten here, you've got to get to that point where you really understand how important it is to think of yourself as a brand and to think of using social media in that way specifically, because that's where it's at. Social media has really leveled the playing field for us and enabled us to do what prior to social media would have cost us millions to do. So most of us could never have afforded it. And what Sprout Social does, what I didn't love about a product like Hootsuite, and I'll go in there and I'll show it to you. Many of you are probably using this, is that I get into a product like Hootsuite, and it sort of really appeals to my ADD tendencies, because as you're going to see in a second, if you haven't seen this already, it's organized in columns. So I set up all these columns, and I can see where somebody's mentioned me, and the following within is a list that I have on Twitter, and the home is my home feed, which shows me everything from everybody that I'm following and so on. And I look at this and I say, I don't know where to look at. I almost get confused about it. And not that it's totally unmanageable, but the point I'm making is that when I saw Sprout Social and I saw how it was laid out, this was a lot better for me because I can focus on one thing at a time and stay focused on that. So what you're looking at here, which is where I spend most of my time, and by the way, it sounds like we've got some people unmuted. So if everybody can just make sure you're muted so that there's no background feedback. But if you look at what I've got here, this is actually called your Smart Inbox. And what it does is this is a feed that lets me know about anything that I really need to pay attention to. So in the title I talked about how this is going to be about how to maximize your engagement. This is one of the key components of that right here, because I can configure this, and let's look on the right here for a second. These are all the different channels I have. So I have my Nerd Enterprises Twitter, my QB Answers, which is QuickBooks Answers on Twitter. I have my Nerd Enterprises Inc. Facebook page, my personal Facebook, another business page I have that we set up for personal branding, which I haven't done much with. Here's my Google Plus, Nerd Enterprises page, my School of Bookkeeping pages. So I have all these checked off, meaning that if there's anything happening on any of these networks, I want that to show up here in this Smart Inbox. I want to know about it as soon as possible because it's all about the engagement opportunities. Then I have the message type, so I can be specific. As long as I've got all these networks selected, do I want to see every message type? Sometimes I get rid of the direct messages. In fact, often I do, because the direct messages are often very sort of spammy, right? A lot of people have autoresponders, so if I follow somebody, I get the autoresponder that says, hey, click on this and do this. And it's the worst thing you can do on Twitter, by the way, is don't ever set up an auto DM responder. Nobody likes those things anymore. It's actually a turnoff. At first, it seemed like a smart way to try and get people to click over and like your Facebook page and things along those lines. I'm very much against doing that now. I've turned mine off. Not even the simple, hey, thanks for following. It's almost annoying, I want to say. I would much rather somebody actually went out onto Twitter itself and mentioned me publicly and said, hey, thanks for following. That, to me, is more of an attempt at real engagement, right? Because the idea is, we're having a conversation. That's what social media is really all about. Yes, it's powerful for marketing purposes. It's a powerful way to drive business and drive traffic to your website and your other online properties. But the way that that works is not as direct as you might think if you're not that experienced with how social media really does work for business. And sometimes I find myself cringing because I see people who hold themselves out as so-called social media gurus, and they're telling you things that I find myself shaking my head. It's because it's just the wrong way. I see it all too often, and I'm surprised, frankly, that people don't know better by now, because it's not like social media is that new anymore. And what I'm talking about is, this is a conversation. We talk about going, for example, to local networking groups, right? I go to my BNI or my LeTip or, whatever networking group where you join your local chamber of commerce. And those are all great things to do. I've done it here where I live in Burbank, California. And it's powerful and useful, but what I found is that I've started to think of the web and social media specifically as my online 24/7 networking group that I can go to, because it's the same thing. It's just the online version where I'm going to go out there and I'm going to start a conversation. And what I don't want to do is I don't want to shove a sales message down people's throats. So this smart inbox is so critically important to me because it lets me know anytime somebody has mentioned something about me or has messaged me in some way. So I do include the direct messages as much as I can, because every once in a while somebody does reach out to me with an actual message that I care about in the form of a direct message. But like I said, I would much rather if somebody's going to take the time that they sort of do it publicly, because that's why I'm here. I want to have a very public conversation with people in hopes that a group of us can join together and have a conversation that provides value so that we can all learn from one another. And as much as I can do that, the more I can do that, the more I'm going to attract an audience, because people are going to come to me and they're going to think, I'm not, this guy's not trying to sell me something. This guy's really offering me something that I can use and take home with me and not have to worry about being sort of sold to, right? So that's the key on this. And the smart inbox is so critically important to that. There's also, of course, the mobile app. So I'm notified, and the idea here is, look at this right here. This is a perfect example. So I'm doing this webinar. You saw when I went directly onto Twitter that I tweeted about this webinar to let people know, hey, come and join me. And I mentioned Sprout Social by name, and look what they say. They responded with saying, should be a fantastic webinar. Now, why is this good? Let's start using Sprout Social itself to find out. So if I click here on Sprout Social's name, first, before I even click, I hover my mouse over it. It gives me a summary. And right here, you can already see, look how many followers they have. They have almost 63,000 followers. So they just put my name in front of 63,000 people, potentially. Right? Not all of them are going to be watching. The other thing they did, which I wish they would have done differently, and this is important, is they started the tweet off by mentioning me by name here. And this is a little known trick. I wish they would have put a period in front of my handle, because when you start off with somebody's handle on Twitter, that only puts the message in front of your mutual followers. So the only people who are actually going to see this message are people who are following both me and Sprout Social. So that limits it. That means I'm not getting the exposure to the 63,000 people potentially. It's going to be something less than that. But I'm still not going to complain. It's still very good that they put me in front of that many people. Plus, if anybody happens to go directly on their Twitter page, they will see it there. So interestingly enough, it's telling me that I've got an error trying to click on their username. Let me refresh my page here, and I think now I understand why. It sounds like my internet has gone awry. Let me reconnect. Sorry about that. All right, bear with me here while the page reloads. Okay, we're coming back. So I'm going to click on Sprout Social when it comes back. Sometimes that's unfortunate when the internet goes down for a minute. So here's Sprout Social, and now since that time, we've got my friend Mariette Martinez, who came in here and kind of retweeted. She grabbed the message and You know, again, she starts off with that Sprout Social. So generally speaking, you want to start out with something other than a handle itself. And if you really don't see a better context for starting your tweet than by using a handle, put a little dot in front of it, and that kind of lets Twitter know, hey, I want this to go to everybody, right? If I click on Sprout Social, what's going to happen is it's going to take me into their profile. So now I can get a little bit more information. And again, I can see they have a tremendous following. They're putting my name in front of their followers potentially. And I want that to happen as much as possible. I want more and more people to recognize my brand. And what better way to do that than to get another bigger brand to help me out by doing that for me. And again, the way that I'm doing it is not trying to trick them or do anything shady or sketchy. It's going out and having the conversation. What I in fact did was I decided to use their product in this webinar, which obviously is giving them exposure. They recognize that when I go out and put a tweet out there and say, hey, I'm doing a webinar talking about how to use Sprout Social to maximize your online engagement, and they're going to be thankful for that. And they're going to say, should be a fantastic webinar, like you've seen them do here. So this is a conversation, and the idea of the Smart Box, if I haven't stressed it enough already, is to make sure that I am afforded every possible opportunity to engage with people. So now I'm going to talk about bigger picture strategy online and how that works. And I'm just quickly glancing at the questions here, and it looks like some people commented that they can't see me moving. And again, that's because I think my internet went out for a second. But everything should be okay now, hopefully. Just if somebody wants to confirm that you can now see my screen, you can see Sprout Social. I'm scrolling up and down. Okay, perfect. So bigger picture. I just finished doing a webinar earlier this week about online video for accountants and bookkeepers. And that webinar was really about specifically how I have been very successful in social media based on creating content. So what's the process? I record a video and I put that up on YouTube. And then I actually write a blog post, and that goes in my blog. And the video gets embedded in the blog. So now I'm, in effect, marrying YouTube into my blog. Everybody, I hope by now knows who owns YouTube, by the way. We all know that Google actually owns YouTube. They bought it many years ago for many, many, many millions of dollars. So guess what? Google likes YouTube in search results. So if you start searching for something, you'll notice on Google that a lot of times videos come up. Frequently, I'm told by people that when they search for videos on QuickBooks, or they search for various QuickBooks topics, all they see is me. And I say, great, mission accomplished. Now, it's not enough just to record and create that content, because if I just do that and put it on my website, nobody's ever going to find it. And that's where social media comes in. So what am I able to do? I'm able to, now that I have a blog post with a video embedded that teaches somebody something valuable, I'm going to use a tool like Sprout Social to curate that content. What I want to be able to do is I want to be able to go in here, compose a message, and as you can see, I can select from all the networks that I've connected to my Sprout Social account, and I can put that message out on one of these or any of these, or as many of them as I choose to. So you'll see right here, I've got, based on the last message I sent out, my Twitter account for Nerd Enterprises, my company page on Facebook for Nerd Enterprises. The last one I put out to my personal page because it was about this webinar. So I have a lot of friends who are connected to me on Facebook who are really actually business colleagues and friends. So I put this one out there for them to see, you know, hoping that they would come and join us this morning. And then down here you'll see I've got my LinkedIn profile connected and my Google Plus page. So right now, if I compose a message here, what I can do is I can take a link to a blog post that I've created and put it in here with a message and a headline, right? That's really what I'm meant to do here, is I'm meant to create a headline with a link to something that offers value. And if I do that enough, I'm going to get more and more people following me because, you know, maybe you'll follow me today, and then you'll go and look at my tweets, and you'll get a link over to something that has helped you with something you were struggling with before, hopefully. And then you'll say, wow, that was really helpful, and you'll tell somebody else about it. So again, I go back to the parallel example of a networking group. So social media is a networking group on steroids, if you will, because there's so many more people exposed to so many more people on a constant basis. And you know, so again, my objective here is for people to be able to gauge my content. Hopefully they'll like it. Hopefully they'll get something out of it, and then they'll tell others, right? And that's how the word gets spread. So there's Mariette tweeting again. she's just trying to get herself, by the way, in front of everybody while I'm live here. I love her. So, again, I want to compose a message. Now I'll show you something that I do, and I'm going to open up a folder here for a minute, because I want to give you an example now, because I kind of just gave you the secret sauce, the strategy for how to do this kind of stuff online. Now I want to show you actually how I put it into action. So I'm going to just open up a file real quick on my other screen and then bring it up. And then I want to talk about all the different social networks too. And because there's, the latest thing that sort of came out a couple of years ago was that we're in this age of context, right? So at first it was just get on social media, get out there, get a message out there, find your voice, share it, talk to people. And then it starts evolving. And so in certain respects, we kind of get tired of the same thing. In other respects, we get, we get new ideas, new and innovative ideas. So I want to talk to you about some of that kind of stuff. So bear with me 1 second here. I'm just going into my marketing and social media folder. And let's go with this one. So what I do is every time I record a blog post, I actually log it in an Excel spreadsheet, which is what you're about to see come up on your screen. And what this does a number of things. It makes it really easy for me to find something, first of all, when somebody's asking me. So I have stuff in here. Let me make sure my filters are clear. Yes, they are. So I have stuff here going back quite a ways in time. Now, those of you who kind of know me and hang out with me online know that more of my efforts in the last year or two have been focused on the School of Bookkeeping channel. So I don't have as much content being created here, but I have been making more of an effort lately. So here's Save Time and Headaches Tracking Time with T-Sheets. There's a blog post and a video that I wrote. So here's the URL for the blog. And then I didn't put the YouTube URL in here yet, but usually I will log that. Here's the tweet text, which oftentimes is going to be the same thing as the title, but in this case, it's actually not, because when I put this one out there, I want to put the @ in front of T-Sheets so that I can mention them by name on Twitter. So then what I do is I take that and the link, and it gets combined with a concatenate formula in Excel. Concatenate is a formula in Excel that lets you combine two pieces of text. Nobody thought they'd be learning Excel today. But what that does is it combines my tweet text with the short URL, so that I've got my tweet. And here's the save time, and it looks like that somehow got flipped. So let's get this fixed right away. There we go. So my formula somehow got shifted, but this looks like it should be the right one. Or not, so sorry about that. So this is 246 and 246. Somehow my line numbers got messed up when I was doing that. So you want to check that stuff, because you don't want to send a tweet with one headline and a link that takes them to the wrong thing. So that's what I'm checking. So now we're on the same page. I've got the right tweet text. So now I can actually tab back over to here and paste that tweet in. And boom. The other thing I do on the spreadsheet, by the way, because as you hopefully know, you're limited to 140 characters on Twitter, so I've got a length formula that just looks at this and makes sure that I don't exceed the 140 character limit. And so now that I've got that pasted in here, I'm ready to go. And here's the next thing about Sprout Social that I love, and this is where it's going to, I think, differ from some of the other products that you might be using or you might have heard about. Is that Sprout Social has what's called a viral post. And what that means is first of all, I can schedule my content. I can click this calendar and say, I want this to go out on exactly this day at exactly this time. All the products have that. That's not unique to Sprout Social. Sprout Social has this, though, which is called a queue, where if you're familiar with Buffer App, then you understand the concept of the queue. I can load posts up into it, and then I can tell it, with this queue of posts, send one out every hour, every half hour, whatever I want to do, right? What Sprout Social does is it takes that concept one step further, And it has what's called viral posts. You have to pay for the product to get this level of functionality with Sprout Social. But what it does is, over time, it tracks my audience engagement. So remember, we're talking about how to maximize engagement, which means that from one network to the next, it's going to differ in terms of when is the optimal time to send that next post out. On Facebook, it might be that a lot of people are on there during the day and paying attention, because a lot of people tend to just open up their Facebook page and leave it open all day. Right? So Facebook, there may be more times when it's optimal to send a message out. But Twitter might be less often. People's Twitter habits might not be so much to be in there during working hours. And what I've in fact noticed that you're going to see in a second when I cue this is that it seems to me that they've figured out that my audience in particular, at least, is more likely to engage with me on Twitter in off hours, right after 5 p.m. So at the end of the day, as far as I'm concerned, the most important thing is just get the content going out there, grow the audience, build, add the value to build that audience, so people will come to you and they'll tell others to check out your content. And they'll do that because it is valuable and useful, and you're not asking for any money. You're just offering valuable information. Back of that will be that, yes, somebody's going to say, hey, I love what you're sharing for free. I can only imagine what you can do for me on a paid basis. How can you help me? And, of course, that's what happened to me over the years. And I have what I'm going to be describing at QuickBooks Connect this year when I give my talk about online video. I have created what I refer to as a 24/7 online lead generation engine. I don't have to go out and call people. I don't have to pay for advertising anymore. They all come to me, and it's all because of this. It's all because of what I'm showing you right here, right now. So what it's going to do when I say, last obviously puts it at the bottom of the queue, next we'll put it as the next thing to go out. At this point, I don't think I have anything in the queue. So I'm just going to click queue, and it's going to stick it in there. So then we're going to come over here to where it says publishing. And publishing is just that. It's where I publish content, but it specifically refers to scheduled or queued content. And we're going to wait a minute for this to load. So now what it's doing is it's looking at one profile at a time. So right now the green indicator lets me know that I'm looking at the Twitter profile. So this tells me that this one is going to go out at 11:09 a.m. So Sprout Social, based on tracking the patterns of when people, and by engagement, what's it looking at? It's looking at when people reply to me, right? What time of day do people most frequently reply to me on Twitter, right? So it looks like based on that, the next optimal time to send a message out is 11:09 a.m. So they have a formula that figures this out somehow. If I go to the Facebook page post, I'm certain it's going to be a different time. So here it's 2:49 p.m. Sprout Social doesn't apparently see any reason to post anything on my Facebook business page before almost 3 o'clock this afternoon. So I'm guessing what it's figured out. And let's think this through for a minute. What time of day is that? And this is, of course, Pacific time. That's where I'm located. So it's probably, if I had to guess at why this is the optimal time, let's figure by this time, by 3 o'clock, that's when people tend to start getting tired, looking to take a break. Maybe that's when they're inclined to go check out what's going on in social media, right? We have commercials for these energy drinks that talk about the 3 o'clock crash or something like that, or 3 o'clock burnout. So it might make sense for that reason. Let's go over to LinkedIn. LinkedIn, it's doing the same time. And then let's see what it's saying for Google+. Google+ also the same time. It's figured out. So it's definitely distinguishing from one network to the next when it's best. And, Twitter being sooner in the timeline than the others also makes sense, because Twitter is a place where people tend to be engaged 24/7, like I said. Whereas these other networks, people probably, if they're working, hopefully they're not on Facebook, unless Facebook is integral to the kind of work they're doing. Hopefully they're focused on, especially if you think of us in the accounting world, hopefully they're focused on the client's books and things like that and not posting on Facebook. So again, when you think it through, it kind of makes sense. Now, how do I set this queue up? That's where it works a lot like Buffer. So let's go into the settings here, and we'll go to Sprout Queue. And you'll see, so you have the option of doing the viral post, as I've chosen, but you can also set it up just like Buffer app does, where you decide the schedule. So you can say, I want it to automatically queue based on, and here I am in the Sprout queue, and let's go to Nerd Enterprises Twitter. So it says post times. I'm going to say edit times, Okay, so there's a few things to look at here. So if I wanted to go manual, I could actually create my own schedule and say, whenever I load stuff up into this queue, I want you to post the first one at 9 a.m., the next one at 11, then 1 p.m., 4 p.m., 7 p.m., and so on. Right? So you can create your own schedule. This way you decide when you want it to go out. I, frankly, would rather rely on them because I feel like they probably know better than I do. I have no idea. I mean, I can get a sense based on when I get those messages from my smart inbox. But again, I'd rather rely on them. Now notice what else you can do. I'm configuring for a very specific network, which is nice because that means I can configure it differently for each. So at Twitter, it says it's posting 5 times per day. You know what? I want to make that 10 times per day. To be honest, I don't know how that got there. Twitter, you can post a lot more often than you can on other networks because, as I like to say, the half-life of a tweet is about 7 seconds, right? Which means that in 14 seconds, it's buried so deep in the sea of tweets that are constantly going out on Twitter that it's gone, right? And does that mean nobody's going to see it? No. People who are following only me or not following that many people are likely to see it still. But the point I'm getting at is you can post much more often on Twitter. Now let's go look at my Facebook business page and see how that's configured. Because, again, you don't want to overpost on a network, and that's where, again, we get into that subject of context, right? The context of where you're posting makes a big difference. On Facebook, I don't want to post as often as I do on Twitter. People won't tolerate it as much. So let's go to the Nerd Enterprises company page, and here it's saying post optimally 5 times a day. So that's probably about right. And 5 times a day is about right for somebody like me where I have a ton of content to share. You certainly don't want to be repeating things too often. So for a lot of people on Facebook, I would suggest even fewer. I would suggest, from 1 to 4 times per day maybe. So, and notice I've also got time limits. So on weekdays, it goes from 6 a.m. till midnight. On weekends, from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Because weekends, I figure people go out and they're not paying as much attention, at least not to this kind of stuff. On the weekends, that's where maybe Instagram is going to come in. Because then we're out and about and having fun and taking pictures of whatever it is that we're doing. So I'm going to say save. So as you can see, I've got all these networks connected for several different channels that I manage. And based on that, I can go in and I can tweak this stuff. And, this is not a set it and forget it thing by any means. This is something where you really want to, periodically go back through and review it and play around with it and change it, right? Because if you're doing the same thing, the same patterns all the time, I think Twitter is pretty hip to this kind of stuff. And they may not show your stuff as much if they think you're sort of spamming. So it's important to change it up because it's important to actually engage with people, which, again, is what we're talking about here. So the strategy is, I can load up, and I'm going to show you in a minute, how I can take 50 of these tweets and load them up into a Sprout queue so that it will post them according to those settings I just showed you. And it will do it automatically. So 50 tweets, if we're focusing just on Twitter for a minute, at 10 a day, good thing we're all good at math here, right? It's going to last me how long? 10 days. So, 5 days. See, I'm not that good with math. It's going to last 5 days, right? 10 a day with 50 in the queue, 50 divided by 10, it'll last 5 days. So if I load that queue up, I only have to go back, once every 5 days. I might even say just do it once a week, let the queue run out and go quiet for a couple of days, because you're also supposed to be in here engaging directly with people just on your own as the day goes on, posting messages up, and looking for those opportunities where, let's say, based on your queue going out, you then get a message here in this inbox that says, so-and-so replied to your tweet, and they said, hey, just watched your video on how to handle NSF checks in QuickBooks, and it really helped me. Thank you so much. It's so important to respond to that person and say, you're so welcome. Let me know if there's anything else I can help you with. And try to always think in terms of things that you can say that can keep the conversation going. And look what TSheets did. I scheduled that tweet, and I guess it went out, and they respond to me. That's awesome. Oh, no, they're responding to Mariette, because mine's not scheduled to go out until 11:09, right? So they're responding to Mariette, who I guess has told them that, yes, she mentions TSheets here. So do you see what's going on? I mean, thank you, Mariette, because she's helping me give you a perfect example of how this works. Right, because she's out there, she's telling TSheets, hey, Nerd Enterprises is talking about you guys in a webinar right now, and TSheets is going to love that, and they're going to come back and say, thanks, we love shout-outs. Right, so again, it's a conversation, but that conversation draws a crowd. Right, think about this. Take a real life, physical example. If you've ever gone somewhere and you see off in the distance that there's a crowd, right? There's a crowd. There's something going on. There's a commotion. What's your natural reaction to that? You want to know what's going on. What's going on over there, right? I was driving home last night. I was on my way home from giving a presentation, and I got stuck in traffic, and as I got closer, they had a whole section of Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood blocked off, and there were helicopters and police cars. There was commotion. I was very curious to know what's going on. Well, the same is true in social media, right? We're attracted to a crowd. Crowds attract even more crowds, right? We want to find out what's going on. So if I and Mariette and T-Sheets and a few other people jump in and we start getting a conversation going on Twitter, it's likely to just grow. And at the end of the day, what happens is you can get involved, and they have things like Twitter chat, like Kathy Iconis does her QBO chat. You can find her at hashtag QBO chat on here. In fact, let's go look for that, because there's another nice tool that Sprout Social has. So I click on my magnifying glass. I want to do a keyword, not a contact search. And hashtag is the pound sign, of course, QBO chat. Let me hit enter, and Sprout Social is going to load up a queue of all the tweets that are out there and all the messages on these other networks that I've got selected over here that are leveraging that hashtag, QBO chat. So when you use a hashtag like this, like you're about to see on Twitter or any social network now, because a lot of them are now recognizing these, what happens is it's almost like you've just joined in a chat room. So now every time you post something with this hashtag in it, everybody else who's monitoring this same hashtag is going to see your post. So I forget the exact time that the official chat goes on, but once a week, I think it's on like Tuesdays or something at about 3 in the afternoon Pacific, something like that. This gets very active. It starts lighting up with tweets. So guess what? You go in there and you participate in the conversation. And, I used to think when I first started looking at Twitter that I was thinking, why would I want to chat with other QuickBooks people? Right, because they're my competition, and the answer is no, absolutely not. Nobody's your competition here. In fact, what happened is I got to know, as an example, one gentleman who was another QuickBooks expert, but he doesn't like the Excel stuff so much. So he has referred me tens of thousands in business over the years based on clients of his who needed some kind of an Excel project done or some kind of help. And if I had kept the mindset that he's my competition and I don't want anything to do with him, that never would have happened. So this is just a conversation, but it's a conversation which in the bigger picture will lead to business. It will drive traffic to you, because what happens is people get interested in what you have to say because you're in a chat like this, for example, offering valuable information, and they like what you have to say, and then people start following you, and then they reach out to you. So this is another perfect example of how you can increase your engagement is by participating in this kind of stuff. This is literally the digital version of going to an event where everybody's here to talk about QuickBooks Online. It's a perfect example of the digital version of just that. Every week at a certain time, all these people come and chime in. And, of course, it goes on throughout the week as well, but you'll see that it gets very active, during their set time when they do this. So it looks like it was yesterday, actually, because I can see that Bookkeeper 360 here is actually commenting a day ago. And it looks like a day ago is when a lot of this stuff was happening. And that's another thing. Over here, a day ago, if I move my mouse over it, it gives me the exact timestamp of that tweet. Let's say I want to bookmark that tweet because I want to respond to Benjamin Lilly later on. I know Benjamin, great guy. If I click on that timestamp, and this works on every social network, by the way, clicking on its timestamp, whether it says a day ago or it says 2:49 p.m., will actually launch as this is done right to that tweet on Twitter. Everything you ever put out on Twitter is permanently recorded. So make sure you're aware of that and be careful what you do put out there. But here, so I can take this link and I can copy it and I can paste it as I would into a note in Evernote. And I can make a note to myself saying, hey, make sure you reply to this tweet later on. But better yet, look what I can do. I can click on this little gear icon and I can, where is it? You can add things as a task. Sorry, it's not there, it's here. Sometimes I forget for a second where to go. So you see Create Task. So I don't even have to bookmark it. With Sprout Social, I can click this little guy. And it says, okay, create a task. I can make a comment that lets me know only viewable to team members. So I can put this in here, and I can say he's a sales lead, or it's a general task, or it's a support issue, right? So again, Sprout Social is giving me the infrastructure to use social media to provide customer support and customer service, but also to generate sales, right, if this is an opportunity, or just a general task. And I can assign it to myself, or I can assign it to my friend Eclock here. So I can assign the task to members of my team, and I can make a comment and say, reach out to Ben and see if he's ready. Whatever it is, if he's a sales lead. And save and exit. And so if I had assigned that to somebody else, they would actually get a notification letting them know that I've assigned that to them. And then I just have to come in and go here to my tasks, and I'll see that that's been assigned to me. So again, this goes back to where this lets you work in teams, so that if I don't have time 24/7 because I'm busy during the day with my clients, I can have somebody else helping me out with this. And I want to stress, helping me out is all it should ever be. Because it's so important to be you, right? Don't be somebody else, and don't have somebody else trying to be you, right? This is you, this is your brand, this is what you're creating online. It's really important that it's your voice, right? And there are people who will go out there and they'll say, hey, I'll write your content for you, I'll manage your social channels for you, and we'll tweet for you and do all this, and I think it's a big mistake when people do that. And I get the time thing. Believe me, I get the time thing. But it's so important. I really feel you have to make the time. At the end of the day, especially when you're using a tool like this, where I can go into my message queue and be notified whenever there's something to engage with, then I can actually just reserve, let's say, an hour at the end of the day and an hour maybe at the beginning of the day, and reserve that time and say that's going to be my social media time. That's when I'm going to go follow up on all my engagement opportunities. And then maybe I can have somebody else on my staff during the day just jump in case there's something that needs to be responded to immediately. But see, now here's one where it says I've assigned it to myself. So now it's in my queue, and notice I can filter it, and I can say just show me the sales leads. Let me uncheck these other guys. So Sprout Social does a lot of that kind of stuff where you can quickly customize your interface and your user experience based specifically on what you want to see. Let's go back to publishing for a minute. And let me look at the questions. My spreadsheet's interesting. Didn't see columns D, E, and F. Let's see what's in columns D, E, and F. So D is just a YouTube URL, right, which I often like to include because sometimes if somebody's asked, a lot of times people will ask me, and this is where this tool comes in really handy, they'll say, hey, do you have a post on, how to do X, Y, and Z? And I can use Excel, I can do kind of a keyword search in here to quickly find what they're looking for. And sometimes I'll just, rather than take them to the blog, I'll just want to drop the video URL and say, here, go watch this video. It answers your question. Excuse me. Use the tweet text itself, which in most cases is assigned to be equal to the actual title. Right? So usually the title is going to be the tweet because when I write the title, I'm writing hopefully a keyword-rich headline. And that keyword richness is important because I want to make sure that when somebody's searching for something on the topic that I'm trying to produce content for, that they're able to find it. So I always want to think in terms of what does that look like? What are they going to search for, right? If somebody's just searching for how to do product modeling with Excel, then that's why I wrote this title. Because a lot of people, financial modeling is a very broad term. There's a lot of people who are going to write content around a term like that. So oftentimes I'm going for something a little more specific. What it'll do is it'll limit me a little bit more. But if somebody's searching for something this specific, I'll capture that audience. So the words are really important here. You always want to think in terms of the right keywords. What are people searching for that could drive them to your website or your blog, which hopefully is part of your website, such that they might actually get that content, like what they see, learn something from it, and ultimately either hire you or tell others about you such that they'll hire you. So column E is the tweet text, which often is the same as the title, but as I pointed out with this T-Sheets post, sometimes I want to put the @ sign in there so that they get a mention when it goes out on Twitter, and that's not going to be in the title. I'm not going to put the @ sign in the title of my blog post. So in those cases, instead of using the actual title, I will customize the tweet text. So that's what's in column E. And then F is the short URL. So how do I get a short URL? Really easy, especially with Sprout Social. Here's the long URL, which I just copied and pasted right off the blog post in my website. And then let's go back over to Sprout Social and compose. And I'm just going to paste that in, Control V. And then over here, there's an option that says shorten links. So now I'm going to come here and I'm going to cut that back out, go back to my spreadsheet, and paste that in. When you've just created one of your blog posts, this process takes a minute to update this. But then you have it there. So then the next column, I think, so it was DE and F that David asked about. So that's what's in DE and F. And then again, column G uses the concatenate formula to combine the tweet text with the short link. And of course, it sticks a space in between, so that it, of course, reads properly once it goes out there on Twitter. So that's how you can get a short URL. There's also a site called bit.ly, bit.ly, which is it's a whole URL shortening service. In fact, I think that's the engine that Sprout Social is using in the back end to shorten the links. Out there that you can get into if you're inclined. I think T-Sheets actually, it looks like from what I've seen, they found their own way of customizing the short links. It's like a timetrack.r kind of beginning to it. So you can see here it is bit.ly, that I've used here by looking at the link. So now the question, how does bit.ly work? Same as you just saw. Basically, you take the URL to the post, but because the URL is so long and you're limited on characters on Twitter, what it does is it shortens it. So instead of taking up 150 characters, like some of these URLs might, it'll only take up like 20 characters. So the same thing as you saw. Sorry. Again, bit.ly is just a service, and there are many others out there that will shorten the URL so that you're not using up so many characters, especially on Twitter where you're limited to just 140. So next question, how professional are hashtags? Well, you just saw a perfect example of what I would say is a very professional hashtag, QBO chat. Right, and hashtags are very powerful and useful, and so I guess my answer would be, yes, use them as much as you can to categorize stuff, because, again, the minute you use a hashtag, you're putting your tweet or your content, because Facebook recognizes hashtags too, so you're putting your content in front of people who otherwise would not see it. So, perfect example of something I do, I have a whole series that I did on business valuation, called How to Value Business for the Shark Tank, something along those lines. So on Friday nights, what I do, we can talk about a way to use a tool like Sprout Social. That's why I specifically use the scheduling tool instead of the automatic queue, because what I'll do is I'll write tweets for Shark Tank, and I'll use the Shark Tank hashtag, and I'll schedule it for Friday night. In fact, let's do one right now. I'll schedule it. This way you guys will help me get my work done for later. So tomorrow, Friday night, at about 6 p.m., I think is when the first airing of Shark Tank goes off, 6 p.m. Pacific time. So we want p.m. And now let's write a tweet. And then, so let's go over to School of Bookkeeping. And what I want to do is I want to grab the URL for the post that we have on School of Bookkeeping, because that's where I want to send people. Now, this is a perfect example where I have content that I wrote, and it was on purpose, of course, because, like I said earlier, I'm a big fan of the show Shark Tank. So what I want to be able to do is I wrote content that people would be interested in. I found myself sitting there wondering, do people really understand how this works when somebody comes on the show Shark Tank and says, hey, I want $500,000 in exchange for 30% of my company, and the shark starts sitting there calculating the valuation. I wondered how many people who were watching the show really understood what they were doing. And based on that, I started, while I was watching the Twitter feed through the hashtag for Shark Tank, I started actually coming up with an Excel template. Here it is, how to calculate business valuation of the Shark Tank. I started coming up with an Excel template that, and for those of us who are good with numbers, it's pretty easy probably to figure out that, we want to take the amount of money they're asking, divide that by the percentage they're willing to give away, and that grosses it up to what 100% of the company is worth on the basis of what they're asking. So I created a simple template, and then I said, well, that's not enough to put out there, and it's not enough to write content on. It's such a simple, quick calculation. And the objective was to put this template into people's hands and say, hey, while you're watching the show, if you want to be able to better or more easily follow along with the numbers, why not use this template. So as they say what they're asking for and what they're looking for in exchange, you can drop the numbers in so that you understand and you can follow along while they're doing this. But then I said, I can do even more. And I said, let me create a simple template where people can drop in, theoretical numbers in terms of what's the projected gross revenue, what are the projected cost of goods sold, what's the projected overhead. Based on that, what am I expecting the net income to be? And then running that on a cumulative basis, what's the ROI going to look like, and am I or am I not making this deal look attractive to the sharks, to the potential investors? So that was the basis of how I created this content, and that was exactly why. So I want to link them right to this page, and then let's go back to Sprout Social, and I can't believe I'm already running out of time. It's amazing. So now I want to write a headline and say, want to understand how they come up with the valuation in Pound Shark Tank, and use your capital letters to make it easier to read, and no grammar. I forgot about that, and yesterday I put one out there with a tweet with a hashtag, and I put an apostrophe in it, and it messed up my whole hashtag. Hashtags don't recognize grammar. So even though it normally would be appropriate to have an apostrophe S in something, you have to leave that out for this purpose. And then I put a question mark. Sometimes I put the space in there because I want to be careful that the question mark doesn't get included in the hashtag. And I don't think it will, but just to be on the safe side, I put it out there. Check out this template. And now I'm going to Control V. That URL is still on my clipboard. And now here's where Bitly would come in. But again, Sprout Social builds it into the tool. All these social tools do. So I can shorten that so it doesn't take up as many characters. And Bitly's going to kind of do that Sprout Social is going to kind of do that automatically anyway. Notice here it tells me how many I have left. There we go. So it shortens it, and it is using Bitly as the service, on the back end. And so now, again, I just confirm it's scheduled for tomorrow at 6 p.m. Let's make it 6:15. I don't want it right when the show starts. I want it a few minutes in so that by that time people have joined in and they're participating. So now I've got a tweet scheduled to go out tomorrow night at 6 p.m. with the Shark Tank hashtag, so I know I'm going to put myself in front of all those people who are watching it. And then I'm going to be checking tomorrow. I'll be notified on my mobile device if and when somebody says, hey, great template, and then I can respond. And what would be the most amazing thing, of course, is if one of the sharks actually caught wind of it and said, hey, this is really cool, let's talk to this guy. And that's probably a little out of reach that might be thinking big, which I don't mind doing. What I have had happen is I have had people reach out to me, actually, who have seen these videos and seen that content, because I will also typically make it free on Friday nights for this reason. Otherwise, there's only one of the 4 lessons that's available to the public normally. But I'll make the whole thing free while Shark Tank is going on, because I'm hoping people are going to come and watch it. And I've had people who are going to be contestants on the show reach out to me and say, hey, I've applied to be on the show, and I just wanted to find out if I do get accepted, will you help me put the numbers together? So you see how this comes full circle? I put something out there for the specific purpose of just helping people better understand something that they're interested in, such as Shark Tank and how valuation works. And next thing I know, it comes back to me like a boomerang, and somebody says, hey, I'm willing to pay you to help me because it looks like you know what you're doing. So real quick, because I'm running short on time, and thank you, David, for clarifying that the question mark will not appear in the hashtag and I don't need the space. I always just, when I'm in the thick of it, kind of forgetting to be on the safe side, I do stuff like that. Because once it goes out there, you can't take it back. So, but thank you for clearing that up. So let's go over to Discovery. Discovery is really cool because, again, talking about maximizing engagement, the first thing it shows me is a list of people who are following me whom I haven't followed back. And that list is long for me. And that's a choice that you have to make and decide what you want to do about your brand. For a long time, I didn't follow people back necessarily. And now I don't follow everybody back, but if somebody who's clearly in the accounting world, if I see something CPA or something EA in their description, then I always follow them back. Certainly anybody who clearly lives in the same community that I live in, I'd want to follow back. But when I read this and I say, okay, A hobby is mass manipulation through cuteness. I have no idea what that is. So I'm going to go here to Sprout Social. I'm going to say hide it. But here's certainly somebody who's interested in Excel, which is definitely one of my topics too. So this person, I'm going to click and say, let's follow them. And it confirms up here that I'm not following them. And notice over here, this is specifically for Nerd Enterprises. So that's how I know I'm following them with Nerd Enterprises. David's also saying he's heard that a hashtag can't begin with a number. That's probably true. I don't know why you'd want to start a hashtag with a number in any case, because again, the hashtag is a keyword based on which people can actually search and create a whole queue and see everybody who's talking about that topic. You know, and some people make up some hashtags. One of my favorite hashtags to use is this one. My friends at T-Sheets love this. Talk nerdy to me. So I'll frequently put that in there. Now the hashtag search itself, if you go and look at all the people who are using that, probably doesn't bear a whole lot of relevance, but again, sometimes it's not about being so serious all the time and making it all about business. Sometimes what we really want to do is mix it up and have a little fun with this stuff. So if I get into discovery, the first thing is I can see who's followed me that I haven't followed back yet. I can go through and see if there's people that look like their interests are in line with mine, like Dwayne Johnson here, who's an accounting and tax consulting service. You know, I definitely want to follow back somebody like that. He's clearly, you know, in line with me in terms of our interests. This will show me people I have conversed with, and why is it doing that? Please don't do this to me. Okay, nope, I am connected, so it's just a little touchy here. But if it'll show me people who I've conversed with. Let me back up on my browser. The other thing I love in here is the cleanup. So again, one thing you definitely want to be careful about is you want to keep your ratios in check in terms of how many people you're following versus how many people are following you. So what you want to do is, you know, you want to look at your Twitter ratio here, and it's especially important on Twitter. Notice I have 12,200 followers, but I'm only following 3,200 people back. And I believe it's important to keep that ratio in check, especially if your objective is to position yourself as any kind of thought leader based on your area of expertise, right? Then you always want to have more people following you than you're following. And one way to keep, what you definitely don't ever want is you don't ever want to be following more people than you have following you. It doesn't matter if they're the same people or not, but the number is what matters. So you definitely don't want to, when I look at somebody's account and I see that they're following more people than are following them, that concerns me. So one way to fix that, if you find that you're in that situation, is with Sprout Social, I can go right here and I can see who's not following me back. And I want to caution you here, this isn't just about unfollowing somebody just because they're not following you back. There are people I follow who I don't expect to follow me back. The sharks, for example, they're not going to follow me back. They're too big for me. And I'm just reminded, by the way, that I need to give you the CPE keyword. So I'm going to stop here for a second and give that to you. Here's the keyword you need, and we're going to bring up a poll in another couple of minutes at the end so that you can enter it in and get your CPE credits. Thank you for reminding me. I'm sorry about that. All right, and I'll come back to that in a minute, but I want to make sure I cover a couple of quick points here before we wrap up. So you can go through here and I can look, and so I don't know what PaySimple is. It looks like it's probably some app, and they probably followed me hoping I'd follow them back, which is kind of a form of spam, really. And so I probably followed them back because it looks like it's a payroll-related kind of app. Clearly at some point they unfollowed me. Great, I'm not interested, I'm out. And I unfollow them. And Sprout Social gives me a link where I can quickly do that. Here's some advanced Excel user. I have no idea who it is. Similar to what you just saw, I probably saw that he followed me. I saw that he was interested in Excel. Now, for whatever reason, he's unfollowed me. Fine. Done. I'm out. There are going to be people, though, that you're going to want to follow that aren't going to follow you back. FreshBooks hasn't followed me back. They're going to be in our Hangout next week. Hopefully, they'll follow me back soon enough. And here are my sharks. Right here's Barbara Corcoran, Kevin O'Leary, Mark Cuban, Lori Greiner. I would expect these guys to follow me back, and I don't need them to. So, you know, but a way to kind of clean things up and keep that ratio in check is to start by unfollowing people who aren't following you. Why not? If they're not, unless, like I said, you have somebody like one of the sharks in Shark Tank, where you have a specific invested interest in what they have to say, and you wouldn't expect them to be following you back. So real quick, last point I want to make sure I cover, because I have about a minute left, is all the different social networks. Somebody will say, hey, which network should I be on? Which one should I not be on? My answer frequently, and I'm a little flippant about this, is be on all of them. And I'll bring the keyword back up in a minute. But you should be on all of them. As you can see from Sprout Social and any other of these apps, by the way, I can access one or all of the networks at one time. You can also see that by simply having my tabs open, I can access all of these different social networks. YouTube, I didn't even get to talk about. It's the most important one, but of course that requires making videos. When I create a tweet for later, can I also save the image that will be attached to the tweet? Well, the image is going to come from the metadata of the post. So if I'm using a URL that's linking to my blog, and I have a featured image on that blog, then that's the image that's going to get picked up. And yes, it will give you a preview of that image in, when you're composing the message in Sprout Social, it'll give you a preview. And Sprout Social gives you an opportunity actually to change that image, but it also warns you that change won't necessarily work, like it doesn't work on Google+. Google+ just kind of won't allow that. A couple of networks that you probably don't think of for business use that you should are Instagram, right? Now, how is Instagram used? Here's an example. Last night I gave a presentation on cash flow projections, and so stupid little things you can do. I took a picture of my computer with the projection up on the wall, and I wrote a little message saying, I'm giving a cash flow presentation. And you can see from the heart that somebody liked that post of mine. Pinterest, my God. We think of Pinterest as a place just to post recipes, but I have YouTube videos, based on genres of, here's, let's see, YouTube QuickBooks. Hurry up, and how to correct this. So this is customer transactions. As you can see, I have some work to do here, but the point is I can create a board on Pinterest and group my content based on that, and it's yet another place where people can access my content. People who might be out there looking at recipes might stumble on this and say, hey, you know what, this is more important than that recipe. I actually need to learn this QuickBooks tutorial. And next thing you know, people are repinning it, and I get that all the time. I get messages that people are repinning. I have Excel videos. I have all kinds of stuff here on Pinterest that's business-related. I have the fun stuff, too, but I have a lot of business-related stuff. Here's a pin board that's based specifically on inventory. So all my videos that deal with inventory that are on YouTube can be found on this pin board here. Again, it's another place where I can put my content out there with really no additional effort beyond that, will give me an opportunity to draw in more traffic. And of course, when somebody repins something and I get that email notifying me, I go back into Pinterest immediately and I thank them. Thank you is the most important thing I can leave you with. It's the power of thank you. Got to be able to take the time, to do that. And with that, I'm going to bring back the keyword. Sorry if I ran over for a couple of minutes, but I felt it was important to cover that stuff. And thanks again for having me. And now I'll launch the poll. So that you can get your CPE credit.